When a child gets bullied, as a parent, we often think, how can we stop this? What activity is out there to help my child from being bullied? This week, we're going to talk about, is there an activity that's best to make your child bully-proof? We'll get into it after I hit this music. Joining me this week is personal development coach Chris Flodstrom. Chris, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
So we're both martial arts instructors, so maybe some of us might be a little biased about it, but when you go on social media, especially when you see ads for martial arts schools, you may see stuff like become bully proof. Chris, as a martial arts instructor, what's the percentage of kids that you see in your school that comes to you because you're being bullied?
I mean, I haven't sat down and fully calculated the metrics, but I would say comfortably, around 30% is kind of like what gets the conversation started. Parents will call in. It's like most of the time, they're like, oh, like we're looking for this and that. And we're always trying to press what got you to call in today? And it's like, well, there were some situations or maybe like a while ago, but the situation resolved itself or, it's continuing on to a lesser capacity. But yeah, I mean, like a good 30% just on that first call, I would say is kind of the number.
Yeah, as a school owner myself, my percentage of kids coming in there being bullied, it's got to be around maybe 10 to 20%. It's not a lot. It's not the biggest reason why they're joining martial arts, but yet martial arts schools push that, it seems like, to become bully-proof because, I think one of it is because of the self-defense aspect of it. But is martial arts the answer to helping your child become bully-proof? Are there other programs you think that will do just as well? I know we're both talking kind of about our businesses. We all want to say, yes, karate is the best for bullying, but is it really? Is it really? What's your thoughts on that, Chris?
So, I mean, you're asking the right question, right? Like, is martial arts the best thing for bullying? And I mean, the answer is no, because there's no best thing, right? Like, bullying is a matrix of things that's going on, right? It's a complication between a child's self-esteem. It's a complication for their physical capacity for violence and to deter a threat. It has a lot to do with social factors and being exiled. It has to do with their overall resilience. I mean, everything is playing together in a whole different way. And when we're talking about martial arts and its ability to deal with bullying from a self-defense level, I mean, I get kids who are 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old. Do I trust them to appropriately utilize a strike against another person? Do I trust their judgment that much? It's can we always say that yes, martial arts is the answer? No, 100% with full integrity, we cannot tell a parent that we are the absolute answer because I mean, there's so many other factors. What I will say is that we're pretty darn close to addressing a majority of the issues that are going to pop up. And I can say in full integrity that we help. We can help in many different ways. And we have to also know their situation to know how we can help. So part of our job is asking the right questions and saying what can I do to best serve you in my role as a martial arts instructor, in my role as a coach for your child. And so I think that's kind of where it starts. Are we the answer? Absolutely not. But I think we're a very fundamental piece of the puzzle. And not just us. I think what sets us aside is our ability to integrate the use of self-defense in these scenarios. That's kind of where we stand out. But there's a lot of nuance that we have to put in there to make sure that we're doing that appropriately. Because if somebody comes in and says oh, do you teach self-defense? Yeah, but I don't know who your kid is. I don't know if your kid's going to use it the right way. I don't know if this situation warrants violence in any way, shape, or form. So, the situation is always going to determine how we can best help each child that comes in our door talking about the idea of bullying.
And especially for a child who is being bullied, going into a group class could be scary for them as well. Especially they don't have confidence. They're going to be shy. They don't want to do it. They see a group of kids and all they can think about is there's a group of kids at school that pick on me. It can be scary. But you're saying is martial arts is not the best out there. It's not the best. It helps, but it's not the best out there. So the goal today is going to kind of decide, is there a best activity for your kid? And my thought on this, when I was thinking about this topic a while ago, and I think it comes down to your child and their confidence. What are they going to feel more confident at? Do you agree with me, Chris, on that one?
I mean, yes, and like I don't, I can never know exactly like who your audience is listening to this. Some of it might be other martial arts school owners that are interested in like what's being said. Some of it could be parents who are like, hey, like my kid is having an issue with bullying, and I'm looking for resources everywhere. But I think like at very very first, I mean, like let's try to reframe this conversation like using Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Like what's the first thing? You have your physiological safety, your needs are met, you can eat, you can drink, and you feel overall like comfortable in your environment. We can't help that, right? What's next? The idea of safety, of being safe. And then following that is social inclusion. Following that is self-esteem. So like, where are we going to be able to help? What's going to be able to help that the absolute most? And I think the best thing, if you were to really ask me my opinion on this, is the best activity for bullying is the activity that you're doing with your kid at home, is spending time at home, because like that is initially that should be their most comfortable place. Like that is home base. So if you're a parent and you're doing activities, it doesn't matter if it's soccer. It doesn't matter if you're helping them with martial arts. It does, like if you're spending genuine quality time, you're giving them that kind of space to be comfortable, to to be who they are, and like to start to develop their sense of self. Like that has to happen at home, because if that isn't the case, then they're developing their sense of self outside of there, and you have no control over what goes on there.
Yeah.
So like if you're doing things with your child, if you're providing a safe home space, that is the best activity, like hands down, bar none. Because I mean, I'm sure you've experienced this too. Like you've had kids make tremendous progress. They had an amazing class, and the parent kind of like snaps them off to the side, like, ah, you weren't paying attention perfectly. Like we boosted their self-esteem, and then all of a sudden, like the person that they probably look up to the most just like smacked it back down, right?
Yeah.
And so it's so difficult to say like what activity is best. Like you take soccer, a parent can ruin a kid's great feeling in soccer. Like they shoot a goal, they celebrate, and the parents are like, stop showboating, right? Like they're excited, they're happy, and now all of a sudden like, oh, bring it back in. Like I never want to like throw things. Your kid's getting bullied because of your parenting style. Probably not. Again, it's a wide matrix of things, but I think let's start there. Let's start with like your kid being comfortable at home, and like you supporting your child in whatever they are doing. And I think that's going to have the absolute most effect when it comes to bullying overall.
Yeah, I think it's a great start because one, as a parent, we can boost their confidence in certain sports as well too. Say we're playing soccer, we can teach them how to kick a soccer ball. And if you don't know how to kick a soccer ball, how to teach that. If you don't know how to teach how to kick a soccer ball, you can just YouTube it because just everything's on YouTube and teach your kid from there. So it's a yes, great idea to help boost your kid's confidence. The next part of that though is getting them into a social group. So now so you got your confidence built up, which is great. Your kids feel comfortable with you. I get younger kids in my school. They're good with their parents. They come out to the mats and they're all like, they freeze up. They hug their parents' legs. They don't want to go because they feel safe with their parents. So now, how do we as a parent try to transition them from, doing an activity at home to going into a sport where they're probably going to start experiencing rejection. They're going to experience kids teasing. What's your advice as a personal development coach to get our kids prepared to face that? Because that's going to happen. That's just part of life. We just need kids to understand it and give kids the tools on how to combat that. So what's your advice to move on to that next step to get into that group setting?
So if we're moving on to the next step, if they're having issues with larger groups, if they're having trouble, making friends, I mean, I think it is kind of like introducing it as we go. Now, some kids, you bring them for their first day and they're scared, they're really nervous, they're holding on to mom and dad's like, and next class, they're fine, right? Sometimes that's not the case. Like, always encourage parents, like feel bad. This isn't like a bad thing. It's just something else that we're gonna like want to work through. And honestly, because of the results of like not dealing with this issue now, like I encourage you, come back tomorrow. The same thing could very well happen. Come back the next day. The same thing could very well happen. But like if we're not making any progress, then I think, starting to do more like incremental steps leading up to that. So like do the one-on-one play dates. I'm in the moms groups in my neighborhood and I see those posts all the time. Like, hey, my kid is just like really struggling socially. Any moms want to get together for a one-on-one? I mean, I think that's a great idea. That's a really
How'd you
good
get
first step.
how'd you get into a mom's group? We have a mom's group in Mankato, and I try to join it, but because I'm a dad, it's no dads allowed. So how did you get into a mom's group?
So, I don't like, certain groups have different rules. Everyone has their different culture, but like they will allow businesses that
Okay,
benefit their kids.
gotcha.
So yeah,
So
like I'm
maybe
in
I
Mundelein
maybe
Moms, but
I so are you in it as your business? This is kind of more from my information now. So
uh,
do I go in as
I'm in
Keto
it
Karate?
personally.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm
interesting.
in it personally. But like every post that I do in there is usually like on behalf of Action Martial Arts. Like people are like, hey, anyone know a martial arts program or a summer camp program? And like other moms that go to my place will like tag me. But I'm like, yes, I am acting on behalf of Action Martial Arts. Like this is what we do. We are a good place. Reach out if you would like to.
I love it. So going back to what we were talking about, scheduling play dates, that's a wonderful idea because I'm sure have now I forgot to ask you, do you have kids yourself?
Yeah, I have one daughter. So,
Okay,
and I had
have you ever scheduled a play date before online?
So Playdate online, no. Like we already have like a core group of friends. So like, but we'll do play dates with them. I mean, like so far, my daughter hasn't had too much of an issue in a social setting. I will tell you that she didn't step on the mats for like the first three classes that I brought her. So like she just, she did the cling. Again, we're
Yeah.
we're we're currently the safe place, but with like gentle encouragement and just like letting her see what's going on and saying that there's like no danger. Now she's in and like she's practicing all the moves at home and she's, participating in class. But yeah, I mean, she had that same nervous approach to class that I see like some parents are like embarrassed,
Yeah.
they're embarrassed when their kids are doing that. I'm like, no, no, like their feelings are valid and this is just an obstacle that we can overcome. Like this is not out of the ordinary. This is not an unreasonable response from your child. Like, it's okay. They can be nervous. They should be nervous. Like, one of the responsibilities of being a child is exploring, but safely exploring. Like, they need to get out there as it is comfortable. And I think that's okay. Like, so many parents, like, oh, my kid's really weird socially. Like, throw them in a group of kids. Maybe that will work. Maybe that experience will be traumatizing. It's like, hey, I went in that group of kids and it was awful.
Yeah.
Whatever they say as in their child voice, but like, yep, it's exactly what I thought. Being in that group of kids made me feel terrible. Therefore, I would like to avoid that completely. And so it's like, we do need to understand things from the perspective of the kids. Like we have our wants and needs and our expectations of them. But I think part of like good parenting is like not trying to have everything meet your expectations. Move towards your expectations, maybe. Fall within your boundaries, absolutely. But like there's the needs and the wants of the kid on the other side of that like we should try to balance. Like we can't
Yeah.
give in to every one of their whims, but we balance that with what we want and expect from them until they can start moving towards like those decisions, those actions themselves.
I'm gonna back up. I like what you're saying, and I also like how you talked about there's really not the best activity out there to make your child bully proof. Because you're right, it does start at home as a parent. Spend quality time with your kids, build your kids' confidence up, give them the tools to succeed outside of the home, which is great. Now, Chris, I'm really curious, what are your thoughts about activities that promote that? Well, blatantly just come out, become bully proof, have your child become bully proof. I mean, it sounds like from what I'm getting from you, it may help, but it sounds like to help your child become bully proof, it starts with at home. So
It starts, yeah, everything has to come back to the child, right? So, like I was talking about, we have to the like Maslow's hierarchy of needs is all about self-actualization, like how to feel like you're giving value and purpose into the world, right? But we have to build up to there. So like, yes, it starts at home because that's our place of safety, and that's our very first tribe. Like that's our first social thing. And if we are very uncomfortable at home, then one of two things is going to happen. One, we're just going to skip the necessary feeling of safety and kind of like just jump into the social thing where we use a social experience as a crutch, right? So that means that the influence of your friends is going to bypass the need for your feeling of safety at home. And think of like, that's how people become the bullies. Like, hey, if you don't tease Johnny, then you can't be part of our friend group. Okay, I'll tease Johnny because you guys are now my sense of safety, right?
yeah,
That's a difficult challenge to work through, right? So it starts with like, let's get that sense of safety at home. But like you said before, we don't want the kids clinging to our leg forever. We just have to fill that need first. And then we move them forward. So then like what the activities that encourage, bully proof or bully resistant, are they doing due diligence for the kids? It depends on
yeah,
their approach, I think, right? So as a martial artist, I grew up as a traditional martial artist. I don't know if this is, how things were with karate for you when you were growing up, but it didn't matter what I wanted. It had like, they were going to make me better physically, probably. They were going to, like they're going to challenge my intellect, like having to memorize my forms and, like memorize certain things. They worked on the discipline, but I had to fit within the realm of the martial art, not using the martial art as a vehicle for my own progress, right? And
yeah,
so you and I are both in skills, and that really is like, okay, I get the value of traditional martial arts. You're going to improve the child very likely, even by doing that. Like some progress will be made, but let's flip the script. Let's say what I am doing is now the asset to your child, and not like your child being pulled within this group is like the asset itself. Okay. So like, is karate important? No. Is taekwondo important? No. What is important? The fact that we're using the concepts and the activities of karate and taekwondo and jujitsu to improve our child. Can that be applied to soccer? Yes. Can that be applied to gymnastics? Yes. Whatever you want to do to start to build up the confidence of your kids, right? Because like, what is the ultimate goal? Like, and I use this in my marketing for my school because this is exactly my process, right? Like, number one, I want to show what my students are capable of first, right? They come in, maybe they don't know what they can do. Okay, great. Let's start there. Then I try to show them that what they can do can be grown on, like grown and improved. So like what they're currently capable of is still fine. Like great, let's celebrate that. But look, we can incrementally build you up, and now you can do a little bit of a harder kick, or you can run a little bit faster, or you couldn't do a sit-up, but now you can. So like now it's like we show you what you can do, and then we improve upon that. And then
yeah,
after that is getting them in the mindset to understand that they can do hard things. And I think this is like the key to bullying, right? Because like the ability to deal with discomfort is a skill that everybody to be successful in life has to have at some like in some way, shape, or form. Like to deal with discomfort and pain and deal with that like icky part of your emotions with like grace and dignity, right? Like that's like the next part. So like when I teach my kids that they can do hard things and like honestly, even see if they can enjoy themselves while doing it. So like our physical fitness, I encourage them to smile. Does it suck? Yeah. Are burpees
yeah,
fun? Most of the time, no. But like, if you get your kids doing burpees and throwing their hands in the air and like, okay, when your hands go up, you woo like you're on a roller coaster. Like, okay, burpees still suck, but guess what? We're having fun while we do it. And I think that's another big part. So like, can you teach them that they can do hard things? Okay, great. And then I think the critical thing that we have to incorporate into our programs and how we work with our kids is that we have to find a way to educate them that they don't need us to continue this progress or this process, right? And that's the thing, like everyone says, like, oh, like we give our kids good workouts, great. We get them through their ranks, great. But all of that is like just demonstrating that they're hitting goals and reaching goals within the context of what we are telling them to do. Now, is there a way to incorporate into your language, to incorporate into your classes, to incorporate into your lessons that, hey guys, you're doing this because we said so, but you don't need to wait for that. You can get better whenever you want, anytime you want. It's just the decision that you make. And guess what? Just like those burpees were uncomfortable, you can still find a way to enjoy the process of just getting better, right? Learning the form was boring, but you know what? You did it. Here's your belt. And this process can be enjoyable. You don't need me to tell you what to do next in order to make progress. This is what you do. So like, yes, with our guidance, that's where we started.
Chris,
But I
it makes
think
me
go ahead.
you make me think that martial arts does sound better. Here's why. Here's my tidbit why. When I was in junior high school and going into ninth grade, well, first of all, I started martial arts, Taekwondo, at 1994. So I was going right into ninth grade. When you compete in sports, so I was in baseball and I did golf. You either could do it or you couldn't do it. And there was no in between in those sports. So if you couldn't bat, you couldn't, run fast, catch fast. You know what the coach does to you as a player? You sit. You go sit on the bench and maybe they'll use you. That was my experience with baseball. And golf, you just didn't compete because I was perfect at slicing balls. I could slice a golf ball better than anybody. Did the coach spend time with me to get me better? No, they don't got time for that because there's a public school. They're looking for the best people. This is their team. And what martial arts does, though, we will give your child those small goals, and there is no time limit to complete those goals. Well, there is if you want to get a belt. Most kids want to stay with their friends. So if you join with Johnny, you don't want Johnny to get 2 levels past you. I mean, that's just kind of like that. That's your extrinsic motivation to do better. Yeah, he's not passing me. So kids kind of work off each other to get better. But with martial arts, as a white belt, we all start the same. We all learn the same stuff. We all learn the front kicks. We all learn the stances and so forth. That's one thing martial arts does do that I don't see in other sports. Could other sports still replicate what martial arts do to set those small goals and maybe help those kids like me when I was in ninth grade? Okay, Tim sucks at hitting the ball. What can I do to help him to hit the ball? Could other sports replicate what martial arts schools are doing?
Absolutely. So, and like, I don't know if you've noticed, like I'm dancing around the argument, but not like firmly footing, like, is martial arts the best? I mean, if we want to unveil the curtain, like, I think it's one of the best. It's one of the reasons that I'm in here for so long. Like, I will admit, even to parents coming in, that it is not the full puzzle. It's a piece to the puzzle, but I mean, you're right. So here's an example, right? Like you mentioned extrinsic motivation. The process that I talked about, like show kids what they're capable of, show them that they can improve that, and then demonstrate that they can do hard things. Okay. And then like, that's all like, you can kind of do that because I say so. That's all extrinsic motivation, right? I said to do that. But the last part, teach them that they don't need us to do that. If we can really get them to believe that, then there is intrinsic motivation, right? You're not doing it because I said so. You're doing it because it's the right thing to do. Okay. And we can use that with values. We can use that with positive habits. We can use that with pretty much anything. So I think the approach to that, I mean, that can be replicated with almost any sport. But here's where I think martial arts is really, really good. We rely on student leaders. Okay, like we'll often get laughed at. It's like, oh, you have a 7 or 8-year-old black belt, as if that's a bad thing. Okay, like now listen, if you just get paid to give someone a black belt and really they don't meet any of the criteria, it's just like they kind of showed up, they kind of like, if we didn't challenge them along the way, then I think that is a demerit to us and the establishment that we run. But if we challenge the student, like the black belt has nothing to do with your ability to fight. And I say that all the time because you get out of martial arts what you need to get out of it. And I think that's a flexibility not offered in other sports because when you're in soccer, you're part of a team. And if you can't cohesively go into part of the team with a particular skill set, then if they're being nice, they'll play you anyways. And I'm going to be honest, that's where some of the bullying can happen. So Jimmy's in right now. They're going to score on us now. Like, and
Yeah.
that's your own teammate, right? So like the coach is doing the right intentional move by letting you play anyways. But when it comes down to like being part of a team, like unless you can very clearly get the kids to believe in the ethos of, hey, this is our team and we let them play no matter what. It doesn't matter if we win or lose. How many kids are on that team just to win? Like it's no, not to win or lose. And I don't want Jimmy playing right now because I want to score, right? And so like when it doesn't happen, the kids team up on each other and they, but
Yeah.
what I see more in martial arts, like, is there some skill bullying? Yes, there's going to be skill bullying anywhere that there is like skill involved. Oh, you can't do that move. That might not even be intentional bullying, but like I'll say, like, okay, we'll call that skill bullying. But what I see more of is like groups of similar age and similar rank students coming together, like, okay, like, well, hold on, like, I just messed up that form. Like, if the instructor isn't watching every single student at the same time, they're working in like little groups, like, oh, I think you made a mistake on that form, like, do this, like, oh, don't forget to snap your kick. Like, you start to develop good leadership skills. And I mean, like, what is one of the best ways to combat bullying? Like, not only where you feel good about yourself to be comfortable with yourself, but you feel good about yourself to help others, right? Like, there's that transition of confidence from you to someone else and that willingness to help other people and that willingness to step out of your comfort zone and do a peer-to-peer development. Like, that's one of the best things that you can do. And like, I'll go even further. One of my best teen instructors ever was like not the most physically capable kid, but he was a phenomenal instructor. He was super patient with the kid. And so like, if you put him in an environment where the only measure of skill and the only measure of worth really is your physical aptitude, he's going to lose all of his self-esteem. He's going to, I mean, he's going to be in a really bad place, right? Like he will not fulfill his obligation to the tribe. And that kills one of the very early places for the hierarchy of needs. But because even though he wasn't the most physically gifted, but he was a phenomenal instructor, he got these chances to lead that in other sports he probably wouldn't have been given, other than like maybe a possible like charity case. And so like I had that ability, and guess what? Like I get texts from him now. It's like, hey, thank you so much for everything. Like he just graduated college. It's like I am now a teacher, and the fact that like I'm a teacher is it all started with like what happened at the school. And it's like those times where you're like, oh God, I'm crying now. Like, because it's like, it's what we dream about. We dream about having that impact where all of a sudden we had that life-changing experience that like, I mean, I don't know if that's why you open up a martial arts school, but most of the time people open up a martial arts school, not because of its immediate profitability. I can tell you that, but like it had a place in our heart because it did something for us. And now we changed that around, and it all came back to like, this kid could get through bullying because they had that self-confidence. This kid
Yeah.
now could become a leader because they had that self-confidence. So very long story, kind of cut short. Like, do I see that happening in like outside of martial arts? Like not always, right? And like, I
Yeah.
don't think as
But
frequently. I think, yeah,
it could though. It could. I think I'm getting to the point of this whole topic. It's not the sport that's going to make your child bully proof. It's what you said earlier. It's taking the needs of the kids first. Where are they at today? How can we improve them from going forward? So say, for instance, your child doesn't want to do karate because his friends think karate is stupid, because I hear that a lot from other kids. Okay, their kids want to play baseball. Find a coach that can have that same mindset, where he's going to take your son. Okay, my kid's not really good at hand-eye coordination. Can you teach him hand-eye coordination first? Find that coach that's willing to take all the steps that martial arts schools do to make your son a better baseball player. So in reality, if you want to make your child bully proof, it's going to be the parents. And if you want to do sports and activities, it's going to be make sure you interview that coach who's going to be teaching the activity, because it sounds like from what you're saying and what I got from hearing your speech, it's not the sport at all. It's a coach. Martial arts, well, we're both martial arts instructors. We got our bias, this is how we make a living. But in reality, it's a coach. It's the person who's teaching your child. It was a simple answer. We could just said that like 30 minutes ago.
Yeah, no, like if you think about like even when we get let's look at bullying. What is bullying, right? I mean, like there's physical harm or the threat of physical harm, right? That's part of bullying. There's social exclusion, and there's intentional, or again, like I kind of said before, like sometimes the unintentional lowering of self-esteem. Those are all kind of like the components of bullying, right? Like that's really how I break it down. And so like, what can martial arts actually address? Like, can we address the social exclusion? Well, if we build a kid to have confidence in themselves and good values, which, there's always some kind of like creed or tenet in a martial art that people try to live by, right? We try to encourage every day. And then also start to build up their overall idea of self-esteem. Like, do we do those things? Like, yes. So like the social exclusion part, we can help with that. Okay. We can't fix it, but we can help with that. Do we work on intentional or unintentional lowering of self-esteem? Well, we can't stop the other kids from doing that. So what's left? Can we build the kid up to be, again, more confident in themselves and raise their self-esteem? I think we can do that. Can we deal with the physical harm or the threat of physical harm? And like, this is where it does get tricky, because not every martial art, we teach punches and we teach kicks. We teach grappling. I do both Taekwondo and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But like, how you train is going to determine whether or not that is effective in like a real life scenario, but in that process, like the way that you carry yourself, like higher confidence decreases the likelihood of being in those situations. But, if you do want your kid to be able to protect themselves physically, right? And like for the parents out there, like, you have to go to a place that trains in an intense way, which is one of the most uncomfortable ways to train in martial arts for kids. I mean, like, I have students quit all the time just because they have to spar. And like, we're not mean with sparring, like I try to do it with games, but like, they don't want to get hit at all. And if they're so afraid to get hit that they won't even do sparring, like with pads on, it's going to be really challenging to let them walk out of there with the confidence that they can now protect themselves in a self-defense scenario. Like even if we teach them punches and kicks, because like the punches and the kicks are going to be in the context.
I talked about that kid sparring for the first time. Gosh, I don't know what episode it was. It's with Yoga Radi guy, Mr. Ron Shuley. I think I'm saying his name right. It's been a while, but parents kind of contribute to that. Kids don't want to spar though either. He called them lawnmower parents. If it's too hard, we'll take that out. If that kid is too hard, we'll take that out. So we're just chopping the grass down lower and lower until the kid can finally do something that he's comfortable with. You know what? That's not how it works.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. Yeah. Goes back to parenting.
It goes back to my process. We have to teach them that they can do hard things. Like without that component, right? If they don't believe that they can do hard things, then they can't train hard, right? And we need them to be able to train hard. And, like I do self-defense stuff in my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class, but like, I won't call it self-defense unless I truly believe that this can work in a scenario. So we start by learning the moves, no resistance, but eventually we get into it where it's like, okay, like you guys put on these mitts, and remember, in a real situation, people won't have mitts. So you should be very encouraged to control the arms as soon as you possibly can and bring them down to the ground. Okay. But like, we're going very close to 100%, like swinging the mitts at each other, covering up, like, oh, you didn't like it when you got tagged by the mitt. It's going to be worse in a real scenario. And if you're worried about that, we have to train for that. Like, we can't kind of pretend for a more real scenario because like that's 100%. Like that's someone actively trying to hurt you. So like if you're in a bullying situation where like violence is a possibility and either the kid wants to or the parent wants their kid to be able to protect themselves, that the training has to kind of simulate that. And it's very
Yeah.
difficult to not do that. And again, feel like with integrity, you're letting the kid walk out there. But I mean, like, if I can you still call yourself a bully prevention facility without training kids in like more real life style combat? Like, yes, because I think the biggest thing is confidence. And like, how does most bullying, like when I was a kid, most bullying was physical, right? And very, very aggressive teasing. Now we still have the aggressive teasing for sure. There's still threats of violence, but I think the biggest form is like the digital and internet bullying. And that's
Yeah.
always going to come back to like your position in the tribe, right? So
Yep.
can we get your sense of self-worth to be outside of what other people think of you? And, this is once again, like I love the skills training that we've had, but like just talking about the concept of emotional intelligence, like social emotional intelligence and how that should be something that is part of our curriculum and like how we teach our students.
Yeah. Chris, I love it. I think we answered my main question pretty well. Is there an activity? Could be anything. Find the right coach. Take your time. Play with your kids at home. Build their confidence up. And you're right. If you're looking to get your child bully proof in a physical form, you're right. Then that training is going to be it's going to be pretty physical because it's got to match the expectations that you have. Yeah, you're 100% right. Chris, if people want to learn more about you, about your programs, you are a personal development coach, where can they find you?
So I have a YouTube channel that I recently started. It's called The Growth Guarantee. You can also find me at Chris Flodstrom. It's ChrisFlodstrom. I'm sure you'll put the name somewhere, so I probably didn't need to
It,
spell it. Yeah, I mean that's. I also have like a personal YouTube. I'm sorry, a personal Facebook page. It's just Chris Flodstrom. I think the image that you've used to say this is our guest today, it's the same image there. So, but yeah, I mean, I have a Facebook that you can find me on. I've got the YouTube channel, and I'm going to be posting like a lot of content on this. Most of my content is in regards to personal development and getting people to elevate their lives. And part of that is your relationship with your children and, your relationship with your family. So this also starts to tie back into there. I think it's so important that you have a strong relationship with your kids if you have kids. And yeah.
Chris, I love it. I think you're a great personal development coach. I love the fact that you weren't fully biased about our own profession of martial arts, but you gave a really good perspective and you made me realize it's really not the activity. It is the parent and it's the person working with your kids. I mean, perfect, buddy. Way to go. All right, Chris. Well, thank you so much for coming on my podcast today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.